ready to start our next discussion right away. And the topic is international regulations on the web. It's necessary, but is it possible? I'm pleased to introduce the moderator of this session, Mr. Jovan Kurbala, Founding Director, Diplo Foundation. Jovan, thank you very much for joining us. I will ask you to lead the discussion and introduce the speakers.
Thank you. It's a great honor and pleasure to participate in today's event. Warmest regards from Geneva, although it's not as warm as Moscow, what I heard from Andrei. It's raining and it's a bit fresh for the summer day. We had another colleague, the distinguished colleague Peter Maurer, already discussing some important aspects of digital developments. And today we have an excellent panel. We have with us Andrei Vorobyov, Director of Coordination Center for TLDs of .ru, Russian domain. And we have Mandy Carver, Government and International Organization Engagement Senior Vice President of ICANN. And we agree that we won't use that many acronyms. ICANN stands on Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. Now, although there are many acronyms in this field, thanks to the organization which Mandy and Andrei lead or work for, we can resolve domain names. When you type whatever domain name in .ru or CNN or UN or diplomacy.edu, which is the address of my organization, it is resolved thanks to the system which is coordinated on the global level by ICANN and in Russia by the Coordination Center for TLDs. They have been quiet and very effective workers in ensuring interoperability and functionality of digital space, which became particularly important during pandemics. As our lives shifted, our work, lives, education shifted from offline to online, gradually returning back, but still we'll have quite a few activities online. Therefore, you have with us heroes, quiet heroes of this development, and there are no better people than two of them to address this question of international regulation. As you posed as international regulation on the web, it's necessary, but is it possible? And we'll start first with Mandy, asking her what your contribution from ICANN's work can be in answering this question. And then Andrei will join us with reflections from his experience of working in Russia. Mandy, over to you.
Thank you, Jovan, and thank you for the introduction. I'd like to speak briefly about what ICANN does. As Jovan has said, we are it's the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. We coordinate the addressing system, if you will. We're a not-for-profit, a public benefit entity. We operate globally, and the DNS, or the domain name system, that is the framework that allows you to navigate the internet and easily reach your destination, a preferred platform, whether you're looking for a specific application, content, services. You're using that system to navigate the kinds of services that ride on top of the internet. ICANN administers the infrastructure. And I'd like to touch on the concept of regulation and what are people actually talking about when we talk about trying to protect users. The kinds of regulation that people talk about often is talking about behaviors or what people use the internet for. And unfortunately, sometimes the regulations are written that impact how the internet operates. And so you can have an unintended consequence by trying to secure one set of behaviors. You can undermine the infrastructure that allows a single, stable, interoperable internet. And that is what has made the shift to a virtual world and the necessary services and access we have needed through the pandemic and just a global economy. It's that interoperability that shores up that entire global process. So what I wanted to say is ICANN has basically two pillars. We have a technical service pillar. We administer these unique identifiers. And I want to stop and say, we use what's called a multi-stakeholder model. So it isn't just technical people. We have governments that are active through the Government Advisory Committee. And I'm pleased to note the Russian Federation through the Ministry of Digital Development, Communications and Mass Media is an active member of the Government Advisory Committee. Also, the Russian country code top-level domain operator, Andrea is going to be speaking. He's from .ru. They're an important participant in the global system, and they're one of the most successful country code operators using non-Roman alphabet. So to be able to deliver domain names in Cyrillic. And that's another part of what ICANN does to ensure global activity and global access, which is internationalized domain names, moving the internet into a space where it isn't only using the original ASCII Roman alphabet, but that people can access the internet in their own language, scripts and symbol systems. The role ICANN has, and what we talk about as technical internet governance, is looking at the agreed standards and regulations that touch on that technical infrastructure. So we have various roles in securing the internet, whether that be through the kinds of protocols we have. We encourage adoption of the domain name system security extensions. We partner with global law enforcement agencies, anti-abuse agencies, researchers, operators. The goal is to assist governments and the global community to understand how the internet works and to help them with potential technical aspects, technical ways of addressing these so that there aren't unintended consequences. One of the things we talk to people about is what is the correlation between, or the potential correlation between abusive registration of domain names, cybersecurity issues, because securing the stability and resilience of the domain name system is an important part of technical internet governance. It's also different than the way internet governance is often discussed more broadly. People want to talk about questions of content, fake news, cybercrime. These areas of behavior on the internet or uses of the internet, those are outside of ICANN's remit. Our mandate is the technical infrastructure and ensuring interoperability. And I am mindful of time, so I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Mandy, for outlining, if I can summarize, handle with care. It's a very complex system. It works. It's sometimes quiet. Trying to reduce lost in translation between different countries, scripts, languages, ensuring standards and security extension, and being clear what you can do or what you cannot do. You can help with managing the internet infrastructure, but not regulating what's going on the internet. Andrew is from the Coordination Center, Russian, and Andrew, you can comment on these questions, build on it, but it would be useful to hear from you, what is your opinion on the necessity to have international regulation of cyberspace? What role does national regulations play on it, for example, in Russia? And can you describe the situation from Russian point of view, Russian dynamics, or very vibrant Russian digital community, as Mandy indicated? Over to you, Andrew. Unmute yourself.
Спасибо, Йован. Буду говорить по-русски.
Thank you, Jovan. I will switch to Russian. It is my great pleasure to have this discussion. It is great that we have this section. Thank you for the organizers. It does remind me of one of the internet forums we had in Russia. To build on that, I would like to say that it is quite hard to develop the universal adoption, because we do not even have the proper definition of what internet is. Jovan, you as an author of a book on internet management and governance, you know that there is only a working term. The Tunisian summit coined this term in 2005, and basically not much progress has been done in this case. So maybe we need to develop the rules on a native principle, as it is happening on the internet. Because talking about universal rules for everything, that's quite a challenge. Before the revolution in Russian, there was a village doctor, and this doctor used to be the only one. Whatever your disease or accident, you just went to the village doctor, and that's it. Now we are going to the specialized doctors who work in big clinics, and each doctor uses some protocol to heal the disease. We cannot talk about the universal protocol to heal all the diseases. The high quality medicine and healthcare means that each profile has its own unique methodologies and protocols and medications and other things. So when we talk about the internet, we need to delineate in terms of the internet usage, the use of the internet infrastructure, something that Mandy was talking about, and something that ICANN is doing, the technical governance of the internet. That's the protocols, and that's the technical issues that are being resolved. But we see how the global forum of internet governance is being transformed. It used to be a universal platform to discuss the internet governance issues, but now this platform is divided on a number of specific dedicated groups that have one tasks, but these tasks are categorized too, because there are tasks to ensure stability, resilience, and cybersecurity. There are topics related to the cross-border digital platforms and some user agreements that the societies and the states are not happy with, and it all asks for the unique approaches. We won't be able to find a silver bullet here. Can the community, based on the multi-stakeholder model as ICANN, work with some organizations? And the answer is yes, and we can go back to history, and it can do it very efficiently. Let's remember 1998, the corporation was registered. In 1999, the World Intellectual Property Organization developed a policy for the generic top-level domain. And this procedure has been working successfully many years, and all the domain claims are reviewed there. Who should own the domain, and there are no material compensation. More than 70 countries joined the initiative, and we see that in Russia our patent authority is thinking of creating the arbitrage center in Russia, which will have the same remit. And we're not talking about we're now talking about the national domain areas, and but since the number of domain zones is increasing, the first stage of the new deal has been implemented. We have a need, and Mandy talked about that. We want to have multi-language internet addresses. We need to have a user content based that will be translated in all languages. So that means that the legal procedure should be available in all other languages. And this topic is being actively discussed. So this is a good example of multi-stakeholders cooperation with the state or international organization like the World Intellectual Property Organizations. Now, talking about this multi-language domain names, as that Wendy mentioned, I really like that ICANN put it in its strategic tasks before 2025. It is one of our topical issues. You know, this universal adoption. We want to make sure that the email addresses and internet addresses are available everywhere and accessible everywhere, but obviously we need the state to work on that, and we ask the state to do that. And when the state has motivated the providers to go quicker to the new protocol, IV6, the transition is here, it's over. Where there's no motivation like that, this protocol has not been yet adopted. So we do hope that our authority and our regional groups, and we have many countries with the Cyrillics that are used in national domains, they will support this effort and work.
Andre, just one question building on your comments. Your coordination center is leading a Netoscope project designed to take down malicious domains. And BI.ZONE CERT is a part of this project. What have you achieved with this initiative, and what are the further plans, and how you link it to the global cooperation where the malicious misuses is coming across the border? Then Mandy can reflect on what ICANN is doing, because cybersecurity is becoming a big issue. Just few weeks ago, President Biden and Putin met in Geneva, and one of the big issues was the question of cybersecurity, how two countries, United States and Russia, can cooperate. Let's hear what you do on the technical level through this Netoscope in dealing with malicious registrations.
That is a great question, Jovan. Back in the middle of the noughties, the Russian domain .ru was something like a Russian registrator on all international platforms. Was very much villainized because there was a lot of inappropriate content on those domains, and the regulators were not fighting too effectively with that, and the industry was pretty much turning a blind eye to that as well. We managed to launch two big projects. The first project is Netoscope, which collects and analyzes big arrays of data associated with the domains to predict which recently registered domains could be used for malicious purposes. That is the first line of our work. The second initiative is this organization, the biggest in Russia, this competent organization that specializes in, for example, identifying phishing, the problem that was only exacerbated by the pandemic. So if there is a phishing resource, we have organizations that work very tightly to eradicate that. One of them is BI.ZONE, one of the organizers of the current event. So these organizations notify companies registered in Russian domains, and then the organizers have the right to block certain domain names to cut the line for phishing attacks. In addition to that, over the 10 years of operation, practically 10 years of operation, we have established a very effective exchange of information between registers, between this Instascope organization and other competent authorities, and we're very much curious about how these domain activities are implemented in other regions. We know about the initiatives of ICANN, DAR, a pretty famous project here in Russia. We also know that ICANN organizes conferences and sections at global fora about this topic. These are excellent platforms for exchange of insights and experience. So we have been working and enhancing our projects, and I think that ICANN have also been very interested in Netoscope, and we are in tight cooperation in that. That's good.
Thank you, Andrew, for bringing this important dynamics, what's happening nationally, what you're doing with Netoscope, but obviously you have a limit to what you can do, because internet is a trans-border, and things are going across national borders. And we should bring this example of cooperation between you and the other organizations as example of international cooperation and the need of regulation in practical and effective way. Mandy, what you can tell us from the, let's say, international perspective, how these dots are connected from the between NATO scope and, for example, a register in the United States?
So, Andre, I want to thank him for the very kind words. And he has mentioned DAR, which is one of the research projects that ICANN facilitates. And it's exactly this sharing of data and the comparison of analytic information. So we can compare, we can share that information. It assists. I'm trying not to go down into the weeds of acronyms. So I will try and describe this in the terms of, if we have the information from various countries, various top-level domain operators that are sharing their information into the registry, the DAR study, it helps to find common patterns. It universalizes information about what people are seeing and the more information that's provided, the more effective the potential tool for assessing the likelihood of abusive behavior. It's also, as noted earlier, we collaborate a great deal globally with the various law enforcement organizations, with Interpol, Europol, etc. One of the things to remember is there isn't anything that is legal in the virtual world that is illegal in the real world. The only question is the modality. And so regulations against a number of bad behaviors already exist. As you have flagged, in a global system, the question is, how do you enforce those? How do you make sure that the regulations that do exist can be appropriately applied? And that is where the global cooperation comes in. Andre mentioned that ICANN works with WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, for instance. We do. The Government Advisory Committee within ICANN also has intergovernmental organizations as observer participants. And so WIPO acts as a universal, UDRP, Universal Dispute Resolution Group, to evaluate potential conflicts around intellectual property. We have a number of those kinds of partnerships. So it is that participation, that multi-stakeholder model. And the other part that's important about the internet is it has always been a public-private partnership, if you will. You can't effectively manage this system if you don't have all the players at the table. And that's why we use a multi-stakeholder model rather than a purely multilateral. Governments have an important role, but they can't do this by themselves. And in order to maintain the system, we need all the actors at the table. And that's the multi-stakeholder model that ICANN uses, both for the management, the technical remit that we have, but also the policy development side around the management of the unique identifiers that make up the internet. And so there's an opportunity for governments and intergovernmental organizations and law enforcement agencies, but also business and academics, civil society, the end users, all have a role and a voice that can come to this, come to the table. And one last thing I will say, we regularly provide trainings for different players in that system. We work globally. We will provide technical advice. We can provide specific briefings. We can assist with commentary on proposed regulations and what impact those may or may not have on the technical operation of the internet. And that's the aspect where we work.
Good. Mandy and Andrew, let me just conclude. We have a few minutes more with one important question. Let's say I'm not attacked. I hope I won't be attacked, but there is attack coming from domain name from Ruritania. We invent the country. And I go to the local police here in Geneva at I'm based and said, I'm attacked. There is this domain name from Ruritania. And what can they do? Do they call ICANN? Do they call a Ruritanian domain name? How does it work in practice? Just to explain to our audience, which they are not probably familiar with all details of the really impressive ICANN system. But how does it work in practice? Andy or Andrew or Mandy? Mandy, I coined your name, integrated name.
I will let Andre speak to the specifics of how, because he is actually operating a registry. I am on the side talking about the integration. It depends on the nature of the attack. If this is a denial of service attack, where people have used a network of computers to try and overwhelm a system, that's one set of trying to respond. If it's pirated material, then you're looking at a different regulatory scheme. So if it's theft, then again, it's a different regulatory scheme. We are not the police force, if you will. We assist with the information that we have at our disposal, and we work with the regulatory bodies so that when they are designing systems, they have a full understanding of how the internet operates, and so that their designs will go toward their intended outcome, as opposed to something that may damage access to the system for the rest of their citizens, for instance.
And Andrei, if you have a citizen in Moscow and coming to you and calling you,
Я
and
здесь,
saying,
наверное, добавлю,
help
да,
me,
что,
what would you do?
конечно, стоит ждать от... Да, вот не стоит ожидать от сотрудников...
Yes, I don't think we should expect from registrators that they will pick up a gun and go chase the criminals. So Mehdi is completely right. The goal, the job of the industry is to provide assistance to law enforcement in correct attribution of attacks, in identifying correct algorithms and protocols. And I think this is... we have seen an intensification of cooperation. We have recently created a computer center for responding to cybersecurity incidents. I think centers like this one should be cooperating in this trusted environment with other stakeholders. This crisis of trust, something that is very often mentioned at such conferences. We should all act side by side, hand in hand, in fighting crime. And I don't think we should look for conflicts, discrepancies between multi-stakeholder and multilateral. Conversely, we should look for things that unite these two approaches and use the best things from both in order to effectively combat the criminals that use this internet technology, which initially was created for the benefit of mankind, to be used positively, not for fraud, and much less so for hybrid wars, for attacks, and so on and so forth. I think we are all on the same page here, and I see that this line of work is coming to the foreground. This cooperation on the international level and adoption of legally binding documents for states, for organizations in that field, to be effective in combating this threat together. There are different approaches, of course, which you can adopt or reject, but the important thing is to continue the dialogue. This is internet governance. This is what internet governance is about. You continue the dialogue and you come up with new challenges along the way. So this is a process that never ends. It's a continuous process. Those who would like to professionally manage the internet should be prepared that the flow of challenges will be indefinite. There will be no point in time where you can just rest on your laurels.
Andrei, then the citizens in Moscow, Washington, Geneva should be calm when it comes to the reaction of the potential digital attacks. You remind me, Mandy, and you, on one important year, 1998. In the matter of few months, ICANN was
В первую
established.
очередь правоохранительные, а уже
Yes, they should first and foremost go to law enforcement, and then law enforcement will contact the market players, and they will receive all the necessary information from us.
That year in 1998, ICANN was established in September. Russia tabled the first cybersecurity resolution in the General Assembly of the UN, and the ITU held a summit where the decision to hold the World Summit on Information Society was established only in few months in a few cities in the United States. And since then, multi-stakeholder and multilateral approaches have been developing along the ICANN track, along the World Summit on Information and Internet Governance Forum, and along the cybersecurity track, which resulted in open-ended working group. And we often hear that there are many, some especially media conflicting views, but there is a lot of cooperation and a lot of convergences. And you already outlined how it works in practice. And I would like to invite you to give us advice how to prepare for the Internet Governance Forum 2025, which will be hosted in Russia. How we can help and advise diplomats, technical people to build more inclusive, stable, and robust internet. Mandy, first, your advice.
Get involved. Yes, 2025 will be the next review of the mandate. The WSIS forum and the agenda that was set out was critical in the creation of the kind of global dialogue that we've been referring to. You've got 4 years. The next global IGF is in Katowice, Poland in December of this year. So there are multiple forums. ICANN has 3 conferences a year, which are, and a lot of intersessional work. We welcome all to join the constituencies and become involved in these discussions, because they are critical that that we don't have knee-jerk reactions to something that then end up creating a great deal of damage. And we have collaborative models. We have multi-stakeholder and multilateral working together because there are overlapping roles. We'd like to encourage that continue.
Thank you, Mandy. Andrew, what is your advice for all of us in build-up for the, I don't know if it is going to be Sochi, you can reveal us the secret, or Moscow 2025 Internet Governance Forum. Just for everybody else, Internet Governance Forum is sort of umbrella gathering, multi-stakeholder gathering, where different cybersecurity, data protection, artificial intelligence communities get together. What is your short advice, Andrew?
Мне здесь достаточно просто опираться на...
It's pretty easy here for me to lean against what our parliamentary representatives said in Vilnius. I think it was the last specialized forum before the pandemic. So one of our representatives advocated having a more extensive mandate for the forum to increase the number of powers that the forum has, so that it turns from a simply discussion platform, but into a platform where consensus decisions could be made to become then a foundation for something greater. So to develop certain agreements that we could then rely on down the line. I think one of the main proposals of Russia by 2025, when the forum will take place, according to its current mandate, it will be completing its work. So what does the forum transform into in the future? Will it continue to be a purely discussion forum, or will it be something else? Also, this year we had our first Russian Internet Managing Forum. I think we need to enhance our work with youth. We have this institution of the Digital Ombudsman for the Youth, which is very useful in collecting different opinions of different young people, which I think could be a valuable contribution to decision-making. I'm sure that this approach holds a lot of promise, and I hope a lot of the participants at the Global Forum will appreciate it.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Andrei. I just changed the background. Behind me is the villa room in the Villa Lagrange in Geneva, where President Biden and Putin met a few weeks ago. and discuss cooperation on many issues, including controversial ones. What we heard today from Andrew and from Mandy is example of one working cooperation on the global level with a lot of interesting ideas, inputs in build-up for the next meetings on international regulation, and in particular 2025 Internet Governance Forum. I wish you a lot of success in the further discussion. I also would like to invite you to get involved, as Mandy said, and to build together not only internet and new applications, but also the way how we use internet, how we regulate internet, and how we ensure that it will serve our and future generations. Thank you.